Alright, welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings here in the mind of inmendham. Blah 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 blah. Who cares? Just, whatever. Thoughts, ideas, concepts, things that people don't want to deal with much. Truth. Ooh, the truth. Yeah. So you could just start with a Yodaism. Yodaism. There is no try. There is either do or do not do. So in a sense, you could make a subject out of that. And the subject, can cover lots of bases. There's just the future. There's just what's going to happen to it. And frankly, we're trying to figure out, well, what's the best I can do for that future? Because if I have any brains at all, I know the stuff in the present that I think is valuable is going to exist in some form or another in the future. There will be something like the people you like. If you like your parents, there's going to be parents in the future who are worth liking. Maybe, probably there's some chance. Anyway, the same. This is all sort of redundant. This living thing. And as much as the faces and the clothing change and whatever, the shoe styles, we're just grinding along like they have been doing for whatever, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of years. And in another form, it's sort of the same too. Like I said, sort of. I mean, I ought to start putting some fish pictures in here, just because you can really see it. When you watch the fish out there in the ocean, it's just so. Yeah, you can just see it's dumb people. They're not quite as elaborate in what they're doing, but it's just the same nonsense. Fighting over bullshit and territory, and it's all the same crap. So anyway, the whole point of these videos, I suppose, is to make some sort of point about just looking into the space and the realization that there's a certain path you can take. They're sort of just imaginary now. You can just imagine them. Imagine yourself going left or right, or doing this or doing that, making these different decisions about what you're going to be as a human being. And you can sort of see the paths, and you can sort of see some kind of distance down them in terms of we can have enough science to see what's possible. We've seen enough of the past. We have enough of a historical record to know if you do this, this, and this is what will happen. So you can see, what the future is going to be. And, if you do this or that, what side to join and what war to get into and what battle. And, so, part of it is just explaining, well, you can cut all of that down to make it kind of easy to see, the roads that go nowhere, the ones that are turning, into a circle, the ones that just aren't going to turn into anything, that they're not going to work, this hope thing and this silver lining crap, and, this idea that just because you're busy, that you're winning. Because you're not terrified, somehow you're doing something sensible. Because all of that comes with the baggage of all the stuff that goes with it. So again, explaining a simple thing, like I would argue that all the roads have to be understood as roads where what's at stake isn't just your welfare, but all the other humans in the future, plus all the animals that are going to exist. All the other sentient brains are really what's riding on what you do. So it's not just about looking at the road and saying, well, what happens to me on that road? Do I fall into the quicksand, or does this happen to me, or that happen to me? That's really such a tiny part of the subject that it's almost not worth mentioning, because what you're really trying to see when you look down the road, when you see the mirages of which your brain can understand and manufacture for you as an insight, as a knowledgeable prediction, yeah, it's not going to matter really what happens to you because you're such a small one little character in the story. It's just too tiny. You know, so this is, you know, apparently this has become a bit of a controversy, this fight among people who are risk averse. Let's call them the risk aversers, or you could call them the, you know, insufficient efficiencyers. You know, they perceive things as not being functional enough. It's too high a price to pay for too little function. You could say that they're sensitive. I don't know, that wouldn't be a fair thing to say to the, you know, they're rooting for the underdog, you know, the victims, you know, they're, you know, victim averse. Yeah, victim averse. You know, anyway, so it comes down to terms like anti-natalist, and then the vegans and the vegetarians and the this and the that, and it's all this argument about titles and, you know, whether you're a real or a fake soldier, you know, in the war, all kinds of crap like that. And, you know, some of it's not you know, a meaningless argument. I'd say it's clearly meaningful for people to understand that, you know, the only thing at value here is the sentient brain, and there's no logical way to say that an intelligent brain is somehow more sentient, you know, that somehow its feelings are more important. I don't think there's any logic to defend that. It just makes us capable of feeling about more things. It doesn't make us capable of actually feeling more. And, you know, or more profoundly, to have a more, you know, richer sense of enjoyment, or a richer sense of aversion and repulsion. So, everything being, you know, manipulated by the whip of sensation, of ouch, of terror, you know, of doom, you know, a sense of it, you know. So, you know, I do pay attention to things that just pop in my head, you know. Unfortunately, you know, because I said these little trigger words your brain remembers. And so it just had me seeing, I remember watching a nature show, and it was kind of funny because, you know, I actually did a kind of a poignant little story in there about I believe it was a leopard, and she got depressed. And so she went under a little rock, you know, there was just a little rock hanging over another rock, and she just went under the rock and just, for 2 weeks, just didn't move, didn't do anything. You know, and, you know, the best they could come up with was, yeah, she got depressed. You know, just couldn't do it anymore, couldn't endeavor to persevere anymore. Well, anyway, so these are all things that we don't want sentient things to have to endure. And so, as people sitting here in this, you know, this sty of inefficiency, you know, little birds being pushed out of their nests, and all, I mean, you can just go on and on about all the children, okay, and they're all children, all the little children of animal kind who are being raped and abused in just the most disgusting ways possible, you know, whacked in all kinds of just horrible ways. Frozen to death, and, you know, decapitated and squished by cars. All kinds of just terrible things are happening to these valuables. And so for people who are going to argue, I want to defend the valuables, but the only valuables they see as having any meaning are humans, I can't understand that. So frankly, the people who just wish to annihilate humans because they're pigs and boorish, and, you know, they just don't want to do they don't want to hold their pinkies out and be civilized, you know, they don't want to drink their tea, they just want to be tea stealers and, you know, face smackers and, you know, cavemen. And so there's some people who just hate humans because humans have done this so poorly. This advancement thing, they have stomped up the stairs and broken the staircase. Okay, so the whole idea of going, progressing to the future, they just won't do it because they just stomp so hard they break the very thing they need, the instruments of technology and knowledge. They just manipulate those. They use it for firewood. Yeah, you could do that. You could say that as a metaphor. They're taking the staircase to enlightenment. They're breaking it into pieces and burning it to fry sardines. So yeah, there's good reason to think humans have done a bad job. But the idea to think that nature's done a good job is just insanely stupid. You're saying, oh, I really don't have to argue that, do I? I mean, the child molesting horror that nature is, kill 99% of the children, before they get 16 years old. Just kill them. That's a great plan. Sure. Too stupid. So, I don't know, why should there even be an argument among people about this? Almost saying, I don't know why I should have to argue that there's no point in, saving the future from human suffering, but just pile on all the animal suffering you want. Just doesn't make any sense at all to me. The in fact value is that it's almost more precious. The animals don't have a way to escape their fear. You can't just explain to the animals it's okay, calm down. Theirs is visceral and in their blood, so to speak. And humans, at least, it can be explained to us. Well, yeah, your parents were kind of ignorant and irresponsible. They didn't build a nest, and they kind of just shat you onto a ledge. And you've got to navigate this ledge and try to make something out of your life. And that's just the way things are. So you can be explained and you can understand, and so you can be less afraid and say, okay, this is the way things are. I'll try to make the best of it. I'll endeavor to persevere, for example. You can have little phrases that'll get you through the day and help protect you against the visceral terror that half knowledge would create. Having a little bit better knowledge can mitigate against. But anyway, that's a whole... The point is that of the amount of sentience happening, the amount of feelings, the amount of stories being told, written. Most of the stories are in the animal kingdom. I mean, it's just a tiny percentage that's doing the human thing. And it just doesn't make any sense to say, I care about books, I care about stories. But somehow those stories aren't real enough to care about. It just doesn't... Sorry, you can't make any sense out of it. So, I just don't see why there should even be an argument about that first premise about what, if you're going to be if you're going to value waste, and you're going to value, not having waste, and you're going to value something, this feeling stuff is about the only thing to value. What else are you valuing? Are you valuing because somebody can write a fancy equation on a board and have this really fancy equation, and they can love to go around in circles in their equation? That has value? I mean, what do you think has value? I mean, what are you valuing about the living experience? If you're just valuing getting a mosquito bite and then itching it, that feels good. What are you valuing? What do you think is the accomplishment in this human dignity thing, beyond humans being able to clean up the mess that's here, being capable of, instead of crashing the plane, gracefully gliding it down? That's about all we're good for, is the fact that we can turn a bigger mess into a smaller mess. But that's about it. If we're not doing that, if we're just humming, or playing hopscotch, you really think that's something that needs to be, preserved into the future and cherished? Oh, it's so valuable. The human playing hopscotch is, all of this stuff, all the stuff we're impressed when somebody can do, concert, musical people. Quite impressive. People can do all kinds of tumbling things and all kinds of stuff because they practice, practice, practice. And, it's all fine, but do you really think any of that crap really has any value, that it matters whether people do that? When the only thing that's really going to matter is the people doing the Yoda thing. Okay, the Yoda thing of looking for the path and figuring out the simple stuff like, yeah, try doesn't add up to anything. There's either, the future's either changed or it's not changed. You either succeed or you fail. You win wars or you fail. There's no choice. You can't just, pick some other choice. That's the choices you have. And, that's the stuff that's important, is figuring out, when you're wasting your time, figuring out what won't work, figuring out, that's the road to a cure, is figuring out where not to waste your time not curing, to figure out the stuff that just won't work in the end. You got to try something new. You got to invest in something different, because that's not going to work. Something like this channel, see, that reminded me of the channel failure. That it does, reach too few people and all of that crap, and I have to do something to make myself more relevant, or I have to find somebody else to make relevant. That's the. I wish I could just do that. I wish I could just push somebody else's wagon. It's so much easier, than trying to make your own wagon capable of going supersonic speeds and all that kind of crap. I mean, I don't like being a test pilot. It'd be nice to have somebody else to, I could just blow on their wings. I'm helping. I would like to do that. A lot less pressure. But anyway, we're stuck in the roles we're stuck in, and it's okay. I'll do better. I inch by inch, it's closer and closer, I think, to, all it takes is just dropping that match on the, on the gunpowder. So even, so when you're a foot away, yeah, it's still not blowing up, but you're really close. It's a big difference between being a foot away and being, 100 miles away. So I think I'm in the range. I'm in the right, radioactive zone, to cause the meltdown. I just have to figure out how to, throw my little piece of extra uranium just the right way to cause the whole thing to, boom. Anyway, just a metaphor. That's not too far from the truth. But anyway, so maybe I'll take a little pause. It's been 17 minutes. I need a little rest. So I recollect my thoughts and somehow get back to the subject is, okay, infighting is just useless. So yes, it'd be really good to find some way to get rid of this useless conversation about, how many, whether you have the proper number of Boy Scout badges, it's just too silly. Understanding what the real objective is. I mean, to be any of this stuff, you have to kind of accept those images of the future. And, some people, it just seems like they're anti, but they're anti the anti also. It's like they're anti everything because they don't want solutions, because, what, you have to pay for those? I can't do that. I can't pay for anything. They want it all for free. In other words, they want a perfect free answer. They don't want it to be any trouble at all. They want it to be just, oh, I just choose to throw it that way, or I choose to throw it that way, and that's all I have to do. Good. And it's not going to be that easy. The investment's going to be, it's going to require more than that. I shouldn't have to have that argument either. I shouldn't have to explain to people how the universe hasn't set it up so you get to win the game by doing absolutely nothing. No, that doesn't work. You don't get to be the hero by, just standing there going, I hope it happens. That's not going to work. Anyway, I'll be back. Yeah, it should be back. Yes, I didn't advance my perspective any in the time off, unfortunately. So I'll just have to wing it. Uh, yeah. So I was thinking, of trying to make this argument that evolution isn't some brilliant creative force, and what distinguishes humans, like many mammals, is they stopped eating their kids. Okay, I mean that's one of the things. Now, there's some fish that do that. They they actually birth their children from their mouth. Their mouth breeders, I guess they call them. And so they're pretty good at not eating their kids. But now and then, I suppose, if they get hungry enough, yeah, they just swallow. Um, so the point would be is that, yes, so it doesn't take much advancement to impress people in terms of, oh, we're so much more civilized. Yes, because we're not overtly, built to be maniacally murderous. But it's only because we became, plant eaters, and it's just the truth. Like the iguana, he looks like something that, would eat Japan. But the fact is no, he just graze on the, on the fields outside of Japan. He'd just eat the trees. Uh, you know, so so part of the argument is that yes, nature gave us the benefit of not having as bad a total lineage. We didn't just jump from predatory barracuda fish or something into being human. We went through this whole stage of becoming something that needed a family, that you had to be raised, but you had to be educated. That's all the part of being a learning machine, is that once you've made a machine that can learn, it'd be kind of good for the experienced livers to teach you stuff. To have like a cat. To have spend some time with Mummy, and have Mummy teach you how to not get run over and all this other crap that you're going to have to worry about. And then we took that step further, just because we became so capable of learning, learning so much. We could spend years doing it, years and years doing it. Mostly because we're pretty inefficient as teaching, I would argue. But regardless, that's a whole different subject. How badly humans do everything, how inefficiently they do it. But anyway, so it's tainted our perspective, because we don't have all of the liabilities that go with being a real natural animal, in terms of the fact that it is kill or be killed. You can't even afford to have a friend, because frankly, he when times get tough, he'll turn you into a hamburger. Are you going to have to do it to him? And that's the ugly truth. So we're a little bit detached, from living in nature, to understand just how brutal it is, and just how brutal our design is, our lineage. It's this claws and teeth and all that kind of crap, and it's all for the purpose of tearing each other apart, and that's just a fact. And so these people who seem to have some glorious, loving nature perception, like it's doing something, like it's a ballet or something. It's just so pretty. No, it isn't. Okay, it's a bloodbath. It's a meat grinder, and that's all it is. And through the process of having organisms avoid falling into the grinder too quickly, you breed them into good dancers, and that's it. But they're not doing any choreographed dance. They're just jumping up and down and hopping and stuff. And so it's like modern dance. It's not very sophisticated. Kind of just jerky. Jerky. So we have some of that. We're the byproduct of some of that, and you could argue that in a modern evolutionary sense, that would be the same thing as bigger teeth, or some more aggressive thing, because we sort of turned our intelligence into memes, ideas, And the ideas are what is being judged by evolution in terms of which one produces just overtly, which one is more reckless, and that is creates more dancers, and that's the one that gets to win. So it's not winning based on a real good competition. It's just winning because you have more entrants. You bought more lottery tickets, and so it's not really testing the integrity of the thing. It's just testing, how much does it play evolution the right way. So playing the dumbest game there could be, is no thing getting rewarded because we've become so much smarter than the dumb game we're playing. So then some people think, oh yes, let's get into that, let's have a breeding war, and so we have to get smart people and, people who do have the superior attributes to get into a breeding war, with the reckless slobs who are just making more numbers, and like somehow they're going to win. When no, they'd have to become the very thing they're despising to win. So you're not going to win the war unless you fight it on their turf, and if you're fighting it on their turf, you're going to have to become one of them. You're going to have to eat what they eat and endure the indignities they endure and do the half-ass, everything. You have to do everything cheap and crappy. No more college educations, no more anything for all of these. And so you're just becoming them, and then you'll end up just being them. So there's no point. You're not going to win. And this is just the truth. You're not going to win. Your version of reality is not going to be the version that wins. Okay, people in the future are not going to be your kind of people. And it's just a fact. You're going to lose. You're going to go extinct. But they still think there's something, They still think they're going to win in the end. And they're not going to win. Well, anyway. So that's a whole other subject, though. The futility of the people hoping that humans are somehow becoming better physical organisms and then better psychological organisms, when no, they're becoming nuttier and nuttier every day. Every day they're looser and looser cannons. We're breeding loose cannon. That's what wins, because we medicate them and we do all this stuff, and so we're just making people wackier and wackier, and of poorer and poorer physical integrity. That's just a fact. So there's lots of circumstances that make this, little perfect future you're going to move up to for humanity very unrealistic. And again, the story really isn't about humans. The story is about all the other brains, that are doing ouch. And that's what you're supposed to care about, is preventing that. And you're supposed to not get sidetracked by your fluffy little narratives that you tell yourself, the little stories you live for, the little enjoyments you have. You're not supposed to project those into being somehow necessary to the future. Their functionality is not going to need your. They're going to find their entertainment elsewhere. They're going to play completely different music on their radio. That should just be a giveaway. It's a giveaway to me, just in terms of where I live now, is that nothing has any of the same cultural references. So yes, I've been entirely gapped, and you don't even see a glimmer of any of the, you don't feel any of the 60s, vibe. You don't feel any of the, anything that is nostalgic to me. It's a 0.01% of the noise this human race environment is making. So there is little for me to see to invest in. I mean, these people seem like aliens to me. I guess that would be the argument I would make. I mean, I don't see why other people aren't saying that these new people are an alien life form. It's not even like we're talking about the human race anymore. Like I have to be somehow connected to it. Like whatever is going to advance into the future is going to be something like me. It really isn't. Only in the sense that it's going to be a fish, right? But it's going to be the same. It's going to be the same functional brain, but it's going to be singing and dancing to a completely different tune. And obviously, I would argue that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what tune they're playing. I'm just saying, from any visceral, personal You know, any part of you that's clinging to it because you had a cat and you loved your cat and blah blah blah, you know, some kind of little narrative you're telling yourself, that should be pretty unpersuasive, because you should be able to see that the future is not going to sound like you at all. It's not going to look like you, it's not going to sound like you, it's not going to talk like you, it's not going to do anything like you. And so you shouldn't identify much with it for that reason. And all you should really be identifying that what it is going to do, okay, is to be, you know, put into the arena of playing the game, you know, that we're made to chase and run. That's what all the robots are made to do. That's why they have legs and arms and all this stuff, is because they're just made to compete. Doesn't matter what the competition is. They're just made to do it. They're built to seek, find, eat. Seek, find, eat. Seek, find, eat. They're just constantly chasing their rewards and constantly running from the punishment. And, you know, it's the basic mechanism is that simple. And some of that's enjoyable. It's enjoyable to, you know, if something is, you know, you got something too tight around your neck and you're suffocating, it feels really good when somebody takes that off your neck. So that's all we're really doing, you know, is getting suffocated and then struggling to get unsuffocated, and enjoying the victory of the unsuffocation. A little bit of fresh air, a little moment without the throbbing pain. You know, that's what we live for, is this, you know, reward and punishment. And just interacting in the environment, trying to find out which buttons produce gratification and which buttons produce, you know, crap. And unfortunately, some buttons do gratify, but they will turn your life into crap. You know, like drugs and gambling and other things. You know, it's fun to press the buttons. You get a little bit, you know, get a little taste of it. But in the end, it's going to, you know, poison apple you. It's going to putrefy, you know, you're going to rot from the inside out, or however you want to describe it. It's going to infect you in a way that won't produce, you know, any joy or happiness in the end. Yeah. So we're back to, so, you know, it's just about a struggle. It's just about dancing. It's not really about what people are dancing. And unfortunately, like I said, a lot of people, though, do think of it. They do imagine the future as a bunch of themselves doing what they think is cool, when it won't be them doing it. And, you know, it won't, what they'll be doing won't be anything related to what you think makes sense. So, you know, I've already explained sort of like, you know, my preferences. I kind of like golfing, and then I garden. You know, it somehow intrigues me, planting plants, flowers. I don't know why. I really can't, you know, give you a rational explanation for why it's stuck in my head. You know, my grandfather had a farm, one of them, and the other one grew plants and stuff. So, I mean, I guess that's might have something to do with it. You know, my father had a garden, you know. I mean, it is sort of a heritage thing, you know, planting stuff. So I guess that might be part of it, is that I'm connected to it through life experience. And so maybe it helps make me feel normal, or takes me back, or some kind of crap like that. But I can't say off the top of my head what the fuck it is. I think it's also just the competition of it. You know, planting the seeds and see if you can get them to grow, and then see if you can change what they look like, and, you know, all of that crap has a certain gambling fun to it, I suppose. So anyway, but there won't be any of that. There won't be, you know, those things won't be what people live for. They'll be living for some completely different kind of crap that you might even find currently right now in your head when you see people doing that kind of shit. You're like, oh, gee, that's obnoxious. I'm glad I'm not that person. So anyway, I don't want to make this into if we were talking about the welfare of aliens, maybe this conversation would be so much easier, because, you know, we could just talk about what jackasses the aliens are, and just point out that, well, yeah, even though they're sentient and they have some intelligence, they're crude and stupid and smelly, and they're so inefficient, you know, and they torture each other so much. You know, let's just press the button. It'd be a lot easier conversation, I guess, is the point. If that what we were talking about wasn't something somehow people feel connected to. Now, maybe if they have kids in the world, they think their kids are going to spread and take over the world, and it's going to be their people. But the fact is it doesn't take very few generations for the grandkids not to look anything like the grandparents, and certainly not living anything like the grandparents. So there should be reason enough to say, shit, they seem pretty fucking alien. I can't identify with this modern generation. So, I mean, all of that crap is true, too. So, even though there's the big lie, okay, that somehow you're investing in the future by having kids, you're really not investing in your future. You're not investing in the world you know. You're investing, in something that's going to end up looking pretty dirty and not regular, not up to snuff. It's not going to be the greatest generation, that kind of crap. You're not going to be impressed. That's that's the outcome for most, I think, grandparents, is they aren't too damn impressed. Yeah, they think their kids did it wrong. Those kids are yours suck. They don't have the balls to say it, but that's what they want to say. What dim, stupid, little noisy brats they are. But anyway, that's a whole, that's sort of drifting. So I'm drifting, so I think I will take another break and see if I can think a little better. Yeah. Alright, I'm back. So let's get to the meat of the subject. Alright, let's just come on, quit with the bullshit. It's evolution. It's a bug planet. Okay, the fundamental functions are bug functions. We still have them. I don't think we need this. I don't know. Yeah, you don't need the weather. Huh? Yeah. Oh, that wasn't on your screen. That was on my screen. Oh, I don't need the weather. All right, sorry. I'm distracted. My bad. I forget that the thing isn't, well, anyway. So it's a bug planet. Nature sucks. Evolution is evil in its basic design. It's just this whole idea of kill millions of children to force the children to become perfect bullies. This gladiator war bullshit. It's Roman theater. It's bullfighting. It's dogfighting. It's cockfighting. It's just really deplorable as a system, and that's the only games nature has. Nature doesn't have some game where you get to win the great victory, but you don't destroy anything in the process. It doesn't happen that way. It doesn't work that way, and even if it could work that way, you're still doing something stupid. It's just a game you're playing in a brain, a little silly competition with yourself even. It's the three-dimensional chess doesn't have a solution that means anything. Oh, I won! Cool. No, it doesn't mean anything. It didn't cure anything. It didn't fix anything. There's no real positive result in the world. There's just a delusion in your brain where your brain rewarded you because you beat somebody else. I mean, come on. So there's nothing to do here but play a silly competitive game of I can dance over the meat grinder quicker than you can, blah, 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 blah. It's ridiculously stupid. So then the argument becomes, well, how do you get out of it? How do we end the game? Well, the simple truth is if you blow the planet up in a millisecond, then, well, that sounds like a pretty good, quick, efficient way to get it over with. But, what's the alternative plans? People say, oh, that's too brutal. Okay. So let's understand what's brutal about it exactly. So again, I've argued that, yes, I mean, I don't want to die. I don't want to be dead. I mean, I still think I have something to do here. I have some work to accomplish. Okay, it might just be a delusion in my head because I'm not going down the road that somebody needs to go down to blow up the Death Star. Okay, yeah, I'm in the wrong tunnel and I'm heading for the wrong vent and I'm going to shoot the thing down the wrong vent and it's not going to matter. But if I am on the right course and I'm doing the right stuff, I'd like to continue writing, okay, this story. I'd like to finish it. Just for, again, it's just a personal thing, I would argue. Certainly it's just personal in a way. I mean, I can rationalize it with some sort of bigger picture accomplishment, but that's just because of my perception of, the fact that it would be, or it could be. It doesn't necessarily have to be a truth at all, and that's the whole point. So anyway, so all there really is my perception I'm not finished. So therefore I should stay here until I'm finished. And maybe we never finish is part of the argument, right? Is that you don't finish until you're really being tortured. You know, until you got some giant spear sticking in you, you don't give up. You don't surrender until you're really in pain, really suffering, really, really bad shape. Because that's the nature of the beast. You know, we're selfish and self-obsessed, and we're we're addicted to the dopamine game of winning. You know, and failure, dying just seems like losing, right? That how do I win by dying? But the fact is, you can win by dying. That is the truth. And so it's another thing to consider is all the stuff you miss because you don't sit there and put yourself at risk. So we're back to the meat grinder analogy, right? Is it, you know, what's the right thing to do? To blow up the meat grinder all at once? Or is it more sensible to allow things to get eaten up and try to make the grinder not grind properly, so then when the things get smushed in, they get compressed to death instead of ground to death? I mean, you turn into a juicer or something instead of a grinder. You know, so these people who think they can find some solution where we can just gracefully get out of this mess without paying any price at all, it's just, you know, it's ridiculous, frankly. You know, like, let's say if you could sterilize life or something, you create some kind of little bug that could make everything non-reproductive. All of those organisms still have to die slowly and horribly then. I mean, you haven't done that one generation any favor, that's for sure. And it's always going to be one generation anyway. As a practical matter, we can't escape the solar system. I mean, just, you know, certainly not as billions of people or gazillions of animals. We can't take the gazillions of animals that'll be on the planet and migrate them somewhere else. All we can do is plant new seeds in some other location. It won't help the seeds that are still, you know, the plants that are back home aren't going to get helped any. So you already know that this has to be done eventually, right? So, you know, in 5 billion years, the sun's going to start expanding, well, 4 billion even. There's going to be a point the sun's going to become unstable in a lot less than 5 billion years, frankly. It's going to be less stable than it is now. And it's going to so environmentally change the Earth that the Earth as biosphere is just not going to be, it's not going to sustain life anymore. The Earth's going to get too hot. It's just a fact. So that might only be 2 billion, might be 1 billion, who knows. And there's the whole meteor thing. You know, you're inevitably going to get one of these big ones that's going to hit and all this other stuff. So, I mean, this is an issue you have to deal with, is there's going to be a potential extinction events. And you're saying, well, you know, I'm going to mitigate against all of those forever? No, you can't. So one of them will wipe us out in some brutal way. And so you're saying it's irrational to do it, but it's going to happen anyway. So you can't really call it some sort of extra problem. You can't say you're causing any extra problem because it will be exterminated. Life's going to be exterminated, whether you like it or not. It's going to happen. Okay, we can't run away fast enough to escape the problem. So I'm just saying the living things now, the existing living things. Now you want to do some seeding of other planets. That's not really the same life. That's a whole different life you're starting. You're starting a new place that has new jeopardy. So you can't call that the same stuff. Now, I'd obviously argue that'd be really stupid to just put a meat grinder on another planet. That's really dumb. Or to put gas in the meat grinder. You know, to put meat for it to grind. You know, the grinder's grinding, but it doesn't have anything to grind yet because there's no sentient beings to torture. So it would be really stupid to go put sentient beings on the meat grinder planet. So that's probably a whole subject in itself, right? Is that kind of crap. So I'm just saying that some generation is going to have to face, you know, your irresponsibility in a sense. And so this is sort of like a lifeboat analogy, right? We're on a lifeboat and there's too many people and there's just a practicality to it that you're all going to die, okay? And there's only a certain, all we're really doing is saying you can die well or you can die badly. Do you want to die getting eaten by sharks? I mean, you know, how do you want to die? Because that's all it's going to be about for some of these people. You It's like, and then I could argue, it's like, let's say there's people in space and they have cyanide capsules for when everything goes wrong. And so, but let's say there's some monkeys and there's some other animals, there's a, a lion and a monkey, and, a few other animals are on the space station. And, they're doomed to die, okay? It's just known fact they're going to die, and so it's time to say, well, is it better to die getting, crushed or, suffocated or, expanded in space or some other kind of horrible way, or should I just do the cyanide thing? And so they give the out to the humans, but they don't give any out to the animals. I mean, wouldn't that be cruel and mean and just terribly nasty? Yeah, that would be. Those wouldn't be great humans. That kind of, I'm important, my welfare is important, yours isn't. I mean, that would be seen as being terribly irresponsible and mean and nasty. So that's all you can do, is just make these parallel arguments that, you're going to have to, the human race has to deal with extermination. It's just in the physics. You're not going to escape the physics. And I mean the human race in the sense of, again, how to say this, in the sense that the humanity that keeps breeding, billions, maintaining billions of population, will eventually fail. That entire billions of people will have to be killed unless you somehow mitigate against creating billions of people to be killed, because it's going to happen to those billions of people. So how can you make any argument that, again, if we have a war 3 days before, and kill millions of people, 3 days before the world blows up, what's your argument about how terrible the war was? It probably did a lot of people a favor, so don't, the arguments are kind of silly. And of course, because of our technology, we can do simple things. So the simple thing is people breeding less. So that's what antinatalism is supposed to be about. But from my perspective, that's just population control or some other argument you could make. It's not really anti-natalism, because we're already there, in the sense that we already had a taste of it, in the sense the people, the human race that was educated and that did have kind of a good life, a life where they could find better things to do with their time than raising kids, where they're invested in careers and, doing something interesting with their life. And making the decision that they'd rather do those interesting things than baby talk to kids and be responsible for the mess they make in the world and all the rest of the liabilities that come with it. And what if he comes out retarded and now I'm really going to be a slave? Being thoughtful and recognizing that child rearing is a more risky behavior than it is propagandized to be, and that why would I invite the risk, because there's very little reward. Especially if you have a life, you're not sitting there saying, oh, I need to have some kids so I can steal their money, right? You're not thinking about stealing your kids' money. But maybe that's the biggest reason why the civilized countries had reduced population, is because once people hit their 20s without having kids, they were set up enough in their own lives that they realized, I don't need kids to steal their money. They would just steal my money. They realized it'd be a net negative, not a positive. They're not going to profit from having kids. They're going to lose money by having kids. But anyway, so the point is, though, is that all got ruined because we're importing all the, the nations that don't give a fuck. They're rather inhumane, cruel, brutal primitives who just keep producing way too many kids for way too stupid reasons, without thinking about it at all, because God said so, whatever mush, to steal the kids' money or to sell them as, sex slaves or some other kind of awful parenting going on. So that's really the subject. So now the subject becomes a political subject, because it really isn't about getting humans to do the right thing. It's getting certain humans to do the right thing, because a big pile of the humans already agree with you. They don't agree with you. They're already doing exactly what you want them to do. and it's only this one class that's doing. Now it's a big problem because now it's a political issue, and you have to choose and pick sides, and you know, and that's what the real controversy ends up being about, is that it becomes obvious who's causing the problem, and those obvious problem causers don't want to get blamed, and there's a bunch of people who think they shouldn't be blamed because they're too stupid. So what? It's not their fault they're too stupid. It's somebody's fault. It's something's fault. So what are you doing to stop the thing that's at fault? And then and then that gets into, again, that just gets into politics, where you'll just end up with, you know, the Pyrrho type people who just think, well, we spend trillions of dollars on a military, let's just spend all that money on something else. Yeah, that'd be great, but do you think that's going to happen? No. You think that's ever going to, the voters are ever going to vote for, let's stop doing the military thing? No, they're not. So, so it's not going to work. It's not a solution. You know, we can't take all our money and just educate the world. It's not practical. It ain't going to happen. We're not going to tax all the American workers, the productive workers, and say you have to pay for it. So until that, you know, it's not going to happen. So you're not, that solution isn't going to work. So some other solution has to be, you have to come up with some answer, but if you don't come up with any answer, you lose. You lose everything you gained. And, you know, that's what's at risk. So I don't want to get into this. Bleeding into political issues is troublesome. So I kind of wanted to just stay on the, you're all doomed anyway. The human race is doomed. The project is doomed. There'll be a day when every single bit of it, every brick in the Empire State Building is going to be turned back into molecular dust. Okay, you're not going to recognize a single piece of that we were ever here. Okay, that this ever happened. There's not going to be a single bit of remnant left. You know, you're not even going to have you're not even going to have that image of, oh yeah, the head of the Statue of Liberty flying through space. No, that's not even going to exist. All right. So there's not going to be anything. And so why not get used to the idea now? Why not get this over with? Why play the game and say, let's take the risk of harming a bunch of more creatures. Let's keep, you know, torturing all the animals. Let's force them to create our biosphere. Let's, you know, keep parasiting. That was another subject I kind of wanted to get to, was the whole idea of, could we exist without that biosphere horror? So, you know, there could be another argument. Like, if you agree with me that animals are 99% of the problem, that saving animals from harm is, if you care about harm, that's where all the harm is happening. So if we could fix the animal problem, you know, that is, we could create a synthetic life where we're not dependent on the biosphere anymore. So we go underground, and then we sterilize the outside of the planet, you know, turn it into Mars. And, you know, then find an excuse to keep humans alive doing what again? You know, just going through the motions of existing. You know, just creating a game to play that is so far removed from, you know, anything, you know, from the origin, you know, in terms of we're built to be a certain kind of bug, and so we create an environment where we can live in this synthetic universe through the same process of evolution. We just create a new bug that can adapt and live in this new environment, you know, swimming about. But are we doing anything more than, you know, are we any better than the little sea monkey, you know, the brine shrimp? You know, haven't we just turned ourselves into, you know, because we'll have this little synthetic game to play in our little isolated white world, you know, our little sterile bubble. No, there won't be, you know, I don't think an intelligent person can see, you know, great accomplishment in that future. So anyway, yeah, so you could go with like every movie, and you could show how the plot flaw is non-recognition of doom. You know, that, oh, it doesn't really matter. You're just addicted to books. You know, it's like Fahrenheit 450, whatever the hell it was. You know, somehow it's, oh, it's a so much better world with silly people walking around reading poetry books. Oh, fuck it. Yeah, sorry. If that's what you're doing with the books, forget it. You know, if they're not a storage device for an equation you need, or something else to make the world a better place, then what the fuck? Come on. You know, poetry, smoetry. There's it's really just, you know, it all adds up to nothing. You're just doing it because you're subjectively have an attachment to mush. You know, not that the mush means anything. It's just pretty, like the tree with the moss and blah, 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 blah. There's a whole environment there. All these little bugs, all this stuff, all this crap going on, and you're just doing, oh, pretty colors. Yeah. You know, it's got to be some will underneath it all for you to know the truth, to appreciate, you know, on the level of its reality. You know, that it's just a bag of guts getting chased by another bag of guts, you know, to feed it for another day, to steal the energy inside of it. You know, and that's all it is. There's nothing more glamorous that is the cause of the effect. Every little spot, you know, it's all engineered, you know, as part of how to play the game and how to win over millions of billions, you know, millions of hundreds of millions of years of trial and error, and, you know, so much brutality and so much deformation and so much, you know, all the branches of the tree that didn't go anywhere, you know, all of the just completely unnecessary to play a game that's really stupid. A stupid thief game. Yeah, it's just, you know, it's not good. Alright, well, that's close enough to an hour. Sorry. Alright, so, yeah, I'll end up going more than an hour, just, you know, trying to tie it up into some kind of picture. Alright, so, so there's all this controversy, all this whatever, because of just pragmatic recognitions. So I don't have any desire to hurt anything or to see things end violently, or I don't even want things to get what they deserve, right? Even though things like, you know, I even felt bad when Ronald Reagan got Alzheimer's, you know, and I hated everything this asshole stood for in terms of being just a stupid dupe. You know, but, you know, so, you know, I have no love for any, I have no desire to force anything to meet any end or any negative circumstance at all. I'm just saying it's just a fact that if it's going to get done, it's going to have to get done right. And right means you're going to have to make decisions, and decisions mean that you're going to have a law, right? You're going to have laws against things, or people are going to do things and all that stuff. And so somebody, you have to punish people, or you have to kill them even, you know, if they're too broken. Man, nobody wants the job, but it's got to be done. So, you know, what, I mean, it's just reality. Facing the reality is facing that you're going to have to do some unpleasant things. And that's just part of the life. That's part of the unfortunate game we have to play. And you're just not going to find any. There's no place, you know, there's no place in this matrix. There's no back door, you know, where you can just sneak out. There's no place, there's no button you can push that, you know, neatly folds it all up. Yeah. We're going to have to break it. And it's going to be work. And it's not going to be free. And that's just a fact. So anyway. Something like that. I didn't say that exactly the way I wanted to say it, but I often don't say things exactly the way my brain says, oh, I thought of a better one than that. And, you know, and then after the fact, I'm stuck. Well, you can think you thought of a better idea than that, but you didn't apparently, because you didn't say a better thing than that. But anyway. All right. So, yeah, I've got to work on my performance issues in terms of making this more compelling and more linear and, you know, very straight liney. And I'm still doing this off the top of my head thing, which is, you know, I should have notes, and I should, as I used to, but whatever. I'm getting away with it so far, but I'm just mean, I understand I got to do a little better than this. So anyway, just, yeah. My time is not what it used to be. It's not all mine anymore. You know, life changes, shit happens, blah, blah, blah. and all that sucks also. Another reason not to do it. Another reason not to subject it to something, because they will have to experience loss. You know, the stuff they love will die, and sometimes badly. They'll have to live with that for the rest of their life, and then something will happen to them, and they won't be able to do what they love doing, like, you know, they get a bad knee and they can't climb rocks anymore, or some other kind of thing, and, you know, they'll have a big empty spot in their life because they can't do what they love doing, blah 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 blah. All that you're subjecting things to, besides subjecting them to brain tumors and all the other horrible stuff. But anyway, all right, so made it to an hour. Yeah. All right, so I'll do better, I think, probably eventually. Yeah, I just have to get a little more organized. You know, yeah. It's been cold here. That's part of it. You know, cold. I don't like the cold. It's been cold. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's enough. So, till next time, and such. Yeah, that's enough.